I got it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler, and I am joined today by Jordan and Rachel, and we will be discussing getting a tattoo in a work environment. Tattoos can be a important aspect of everyone's lives, either through tradition, family, or getting one just for fun. They can even define who we are as a person. But tattoos need to be considered very deeply when working in a certain work environment. Together, we'll be going into the different aspects of getting a tattoo and what to consider.
So in the second part of our presentation, we're going to dive a little deeper into how different businesses and corporations treat their tattoo policies as it relates to their dress code and the nature of the work that is being done. So within that section, we're going to take note, most importantly, of the constants that remain throughout different job postings and different work environments, and as well as how the younger generation has pretty much changed and shaped the social climate as it relates to tattoos today.
And for our last part of our presentation, we will be talking about tattoo removal and what types there are. There are 4 different types, what the procedure is of them, and what the cost is.
So first is the process of getting a tattoo and what to consider beforehand. First thing you need to do is pick a design and style appropriate for work. There are dozens of styles and hundreds of thousands of designs to choose from. But depending on where you work, not all of them may be accepted, because they can range from anywhere from elegant flowers and sunrises to the most wild, obscene, and offensive designs. You need to decide which design and style works best for you, which works best for where you plan on working, either now or in the future, and just what you're comfortable with showing to other people. If you're looking into a tattoo, as I said, you need to consider what's appropriate or inappropriate, because if it's considered inappropriate, it will cause problems for you in the future. A quote here says, tattoos and piercings do not define a person's ability to carry out a successful life, nor do they hinder the person's intelligence. While tattoos or piercings may seem unprofessional, the ink and body jewelry do not do the job the person does. This is written by Dylan Johnson, who is an American reporter for the Daily American. This was posted on October 12, 2018. Another thing to consider when picking a certain tattoo is don't get anything hateful or discriminatory. There's no need to create enemies from people you just met just because of something you thought was cool but came off as hateful and discriminatory. If you currently have a tattoo of this nature and you want to get rid of it, but you don't want to go through the whole laser removal process, a cover-up is a great alternative. Another thing to consider is how some styles may take multiple hours or multiple sessions. And you need to consider that the more time spent on a tattoo, the more money it costs. So if you work at somewhere like McDonald's, it's not recommended to get a full back piece. A black and white realistic rose would be a great place to start because it's very simple and doesn't take very long. However, some styles such as Japanese style are a lot more strict and regulated. So the tattoo artist will have to be very particular and meticulous. So this could end up in multiple 3-hour sessions costing you hundreds of dollars. The next point I'd like to make is how to take care of a tattoo when you're working. For the next week or so, you're going to have to be extra careful of your tattoo unless you want it to look bad within 2 years. One thing you're going to have to do is apply a special ointment that absorbs into the skin, which heals the tattoo a lot quicker. You're also going to want to be careful about being in the shower. You can't rub soap directly onto the tattoo or it'll smear. If you do not pad dry the tattoo when you're done, it will smear. If you work in construction or any trade that requires you to be outdoors or any typical manual labor, you're going to want to consider either taking a few days off or doing the bare minimum for a little while. Because when you get a new tattoo, do not, under any circumstance, put sunscreen on it, scratch or pick at it, wear tight clothing, or go swimming or immerse yourself in heavy water, outside of the shower, of course. If you happen to work in an office or somewhere not as strenuous on the body, it's not as bad. You just got to be mindful of your new tattoo. And in addition to that, if you're a regular gym goer, you're going to want to either limit your time at the gym or limit the intensity. Because naturally, when you get a new tattoo, it's like getting a shot from the doctors. That area will be sore, so heavy lifting may cause injury. Not to mention that sweat could also interfere with the tattoo's healing process. Another thing to consider for when getting a tattoo are the health risks. First thing you need to do is find a good artist that you can trust and someone who will do the process safely for you. Make sure they're capable of doing their proper precautionary details so that everything comes out correctly. My cousin actually tried getting a tattoo at an unfamiliar tattoo parlor once, but the tattoo artist went behind a curtain to change the needles. That's actually a very big problem because naturally, each artist needs to change the needle for each client to prevent any bloodborne diseases from spreading. Well, if he goes behind a closed curtain, she can't prove he actually changed the needles. He's supposed to do that in front of her. So she left before anything happened, which was smart. You also need to make sure that your pain tolerance is very high or at least adequate, and you need to inform your artist of any underlying problems. I have a quote saying, pain is always a factor. Depending on the part of the body you're tattooing, the experience can feel like a pin scratch or like being carved by nails. And because the skin is punctured, bleeding is involved, which can put you at risk for bloodborne illnesses such as hepatitis B. This is written by Leza Goins from WebMD. Leza is a freelance health and beauty writer at NYC, and this was posted February 12, 2011. If you have asthma or any type of respiratory problem, during long tattoo sessions, that could actually activate, and from there on out, it is difficult and dangerous to continue the tattoo, which could leave you with a half-finished tattoo, which doesn't look good, or you're at risk of going to the hospital, which isn't good either. If you do have asthma or something of this nature, you must discuss this with your tattoo artist because they can walk you through the process. They can recommend what you should and should not do, or if you should get the tattoo at all. Because sometimes people's asthma is too bad and they just don't want to risk it. Placement of tattoos are also very important. The ribs is the most important, the ribs are the most painful part to get a tattoo on because there's not a lot of skin or muscle. Essentially, it's just a needle digging into your bones. For someone with a low pain threshold, or if it's your first tattoo, the thigh or shoulder is probably recommended because it's meatier and it doesn't hurt as much. Ultimately, you just want to be smart about where your tattoo goes because you don't want to get somewhere that would cause you problems either for employment or just others, such as face, neck, or your hand, because you can't hide that very well. Excuse me. Yeah, so just got to be careful about where your tattoo goes, and you need to consider future employment. There was actually a man once who tried getting a tattoo on his eyeball, but once the needle went into his eye and the ink entered in, he went blind because he didn't take it very seriously. And if you do end up getting a tattoo that is inappropriate for work, put it somewhere where not everyone has to see it, such as your chest or back. Your forearm is not a good spot for the chakra symbol. Ultimately, once you do get your tattoo, you're going to be excited about it, but don't go flashing it to everyone. You want to make sure that it's covered and you want to do it professionally unless you feel like going to HR.
Okay, so transitioning here to our next point, which is really how businesses and corporations treat people with tattoos and how the tattoos themselves should be treated in the workplace. So if you take a look here on the left side of the screen, we're seeing two images of two very different occupations. Obviously on the top one, it's a construction job, and the bottom one is some sort of office environment, no specific one. But there's a big difference here in the terms of a lot tattoos. So you think the top dress code is obviously geared towards safety. A lot of the times these workers and their bosses and the company that they work for as construction workers aren't too worried about what's visible as tattoos. Obviously, it's not very smart to get anything that's offensive and visible to your coworkers, to the company itself, and to the passerbys of the construction work going on. But as it pertains to safety, that is the most important measure. Now here in the office environment, we take a look and it's usually business attire, dress shirts, covered up, and that's more of a respectful thing and it shows business more than it does safety. So that's two differences there. And tattoos themselves, they're treated as a work of art, and it's more of what you choose to represent on your body. And it's very important to be mindful that these are usually permanent unless you go through the procedure of getting it removed or covered up, like Tyler mentioned before. So a very important thing to note when looking at job occupations and different career paths to go down is what dress codes are going to tailor towards the type of tattoos and visible tattoos and body work that you want to get done. Obviously, these vary within every company, every business you work for. There's no standard tattoo policy, but a lot of the general ideas are the same, dependent on what field you go into or what the company is that you work for. So if we take a look here at the bottom picture, this is an example of a tattoo policy that's located in the dress code for Walmart. So you can see that the visible tattoos on the face are the only thing that aren't permitted, and it goes based on the manager's allowance of what visible tattoos are allowed. So if it's considered offensive, if it would rub people the wrong way, obviously these managers are going to take it in their own hands of these associates and ask them to cover it up if at all possible. So going into how an art, especially a tattoo, should be represented on your body, in an article titled "Tattoos in the Workplace," it follows one woman who is a very successful businesswoman and how she holds herself and people underneath her to a standard. It's an article from the BBC News Network, written by Daniel Thomas, who himself was intrigued by these transitioning cultures of tattoos in the workplace. He conducted this interview with this woman, Debbie Darling, and it was published in June of 2019. So she detailed her experience with her tattoos. As you can see at the bottom here, one of her 15 tattoos is a tattoo on her right hand. Has nothing but a net positive and net gain in her career path. She works in construction marketing and PR agency. So she deals with, like I mentioned before, the two different types, where she has people who work underneath her as the workers themselves, and then the people in the office environment in her agency and the marketing side of it. And when she goes to conferences and she meets with higher ups in other construction businesses, she deems these tattoos as nothing but a positive. As a talking point, a lot of people have tattoos in the business field and covered up, and she's not afraid to openly admit that she's proud of her work and the work that other people get done. So she often creates a personal networking relationship with these people just based off one focal talking point of her tattoos. So following up here is with the significance and of one's culture and how their heritage is represented when it comes to tattoos. A lot of people have ethnical backgrounds, that they choose to represent different parts of their life or different parts of their ancestors within a tattoo, whether it be a coat of arms or a different landmark or certain symbol that represents something deep into their culture or their religion or heritage. And it's very important that we ourselves are mindful of other people with those tattoos, as long as they're not, once again, offensive. Obviously, there's certain ideologies and certain groups that are represented in tattoos that we see that are very much inappropriate, but then there are ethnicities and heritage, such as a religion or a culture that you're proud of, that we shouldn't ridicule somebody for having, because it's everybody's right to be proud of who they are and where they come from. And if they choose to represent that on their body, that's up to them, and it's nothing that we should ridicule them for. So a hypothetical question at the bottom is what to do if there's no specific tattoo policy. Obviously, this boils down to a lot of common sense. As we noted earlier, there's a lot of common trends as it relates to tattoo policies. Obviously, no real work environment is going to permit a face tattoo unless you do work in a tattoo parlor or something of the sort. And it's really up to the person and the individual to choose the nature of the tattoo and where it's located at, and to be mindful of where they're going to work at in the future or what their career path is. And if there's no policy and you can't use common sense, just don't be afraid to ask an HR manager or somebody who's above you or somebody who's been at the company for a long time, and just get a definite answer of what is allowed. Because there's no point in you like saying, hey, I'm going this weekend to get a tattoo, and rolling the dice and really not knowing how your employer is going to want that, or if you have a job interview coming up. It's just smart to be mindful of and have an idea of what the general tattoo policy and the dress code is for your occupation and the different career paths that you choose to take. It's very important to be mindful of that. So next we're going to look at the younger generation's impact and how they're changing the culture and shaping it into something that's more of an art than it is an act of defiance or something that would be seen as a rebel in the past. So if we take a look in a study conducted by NBC News and the Wall Street Journal in conjunction with the Wall Street Journal in 2014, 40% of Americans said someone in their household or even themselves had a tattoo somewhere on their body. And we take a look, it's a huge jump from, it's almost double of what it was 15 years prior to this research being done. So that's just going to show the more workplaces are being tolerant, because obviously more people wouldn't get a tattoo if this meant that less jobs were going to hire you. But not only that, it's being more accepted in our culture to really represent yourself and not be so quick to judge other people who do choose to get tattoos and where they're located at. So as our generation and my fellow classmates prepare to enter into the workforce and the career path or whatever we choose to do, once again, it's very important to be mindful of these policies and how they vary individually for your career paths. They will become more lenient based on trends, what's being allowed more and more through research and what people general consensus is when it comes to people's opinions with tattoos. And even if the policies are becoming more lenient, it's still very, very important to be mindful and make really smart decisions about where you're going to get the tattoo and what your tattoo is going to be. And once again, mentioning we're becoming more accepting as human beings of other people with any type of body art, more specific tattoos, and it's no longer seen as somebody who wants to be outcasted and a rebel and an act of defiance, and it's more of appreciating someone's heritage, culture, or the beautiful art that somebody chooses to get done by a beautiful artist, and it means that much to them that it stays on their body for so long.
All right, so now we're going to divulge into why get a tattoo removed. And as you can see, like I put a picture of no pen, no gain. Like I'm pretty sure we all know that it's supposed to be no pain, no gain, no gain. And so like why get a tattoo removed? The first reason is the location that the tattoo is in. It could be on your face. It could be like on your hands, like mentioned before. And or it could just be like in a place that's weird. And also it could also be for what the tattoo stands for. Like, what if you were part of a gang and now you're trying to get into the workforce? That's real. Like, people try to now. So hopefully they would choose to get that tattoo removed. Or there could be a allergic reaction, or it could be because of a misspelling, as my example right there. So first, to prepare for the tattoo, I read on, so according to the, according to Healthline about tattoo removal, which is a medical website that I found on November 28th, the first thing you should do is talk to a dermatologist. They'll give you 3 options. The first one is get a tattoo covered up, as Tyler mentioned before, and laser removal. There's also surgery and dermabrasion. So what is getting a tattoo covered up? That means you have a tattoo and you want to change it or get it covered up. On the top right corner, you can see an example of a guy having a dragon on his arm and changing it to a bird with a girl and a cross. I think it looks pretty cool. So it's the same procedure as getting a tattoo, like sitting down, getting a needle put into you with the design of your choice. So the cost could be as low as $30 or around $250. But if you want a creative artist, according to thefash.com, you would be paying about $125 an hour. Next up is laser tattoo removal. So this is when the laser removes the ink from your skin. Some of the side effects include blistering and bleeding and swelling. It costs about, the average cost for this is about $460. And I actually have a short little video to show you of Chris Lee Knows Best. I'm not sure if any of you guys have watched this before, but it's Chase Chrisley and he's getting his tattoo removed.
That's lazy. So what I'm gonna do, to me, Chase, I'm gonna do 1 second so you can feel what it's like, okay? But I'm gonna ask you not to move, okay? Stay still, don't move. Holy, oh my God! Do not curse, because you can't curse when you're missing the John 3:16. I'm gonna punch you in the face. Seriously, back up. It's not funny. It's the worst pain I've ever experienced, man. That's lazy.
So as you can see, the laser beam isn't the most comfortable thing in the world, and according to Chase, it's the worst pain he's felt in his life. So I'm hoping that y'all see this, and if you decide to get a tattoo, think twice about it before you do. And lastly, I have two other options. One is surgery and the dermabrasion. So first, surgery is a plastic surgery procedure that removes your skin and takes out the tattoo and then is replaced with the plastic surgery stuff that they use, and that costs about $150 to $350, and this method is more invasive and less recommended. And for our last one is dermabrasion. So basically they take like a buffer or something of that sort and sand off your tattoo. This is the most painful, and it costs up to $100,000 to receive. So that is the most unlikely one of your choices. It's actually still recording.
So in conclusion, today we discussed getting a tattoo in a work environment and the different aspects that come with it. It is important to keep in mind what and where the tattoo will be going and who has to look at it. You also need to keep in mind how to take care of a tattoo so it doesn't diminish in value and look good in the long run. And you also need to keep in mind any health risks that could hinder the process.
We also talked about how businesses and different corporations will treat your tattoos and the way that they carry out their practices in terms of the dress code and tattoo policies related to it. You should always put deep thought into what tattoo you're going to get, the nature of the tattoo, and where it's going to be located at. Your choice of tattoo or the inability to cover it could really cost you an opportunity at a job, or depending if you're already hired and you get that job, it could make you lose your job. So always be sure to understand the differences between every employer's policy and be accepting of other people's choices of tattoos as well.
And lastly, to wrap this up, always, always, always think twice before you get a tattoo, because getting it removed, as you saw in that video, is pretty painful and is something you most likely do not want to experience.